Hello and welcome back to our next episode of InnovateHER. We are joined by our special guest, Julia Kastner, who is a visionary executive known for her strategic transformation and exponential growth initiatives. Julia combines foresight and vision with ruthless prioritization and warp speed decision-making to navigate and succeed through complexity, risk, and uncertainty. Julia is the Chief Product Officer at NeuroFlow, and she oversees the company's technology strategy, including product design, management, data science, and analytics. She also lends her expertise as product advisor at Alliant Health. Today, we're going to explore Julia's journey and uncover the secrets behind her success in product management. Hello, Julia, and welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So do you want to just go off a little bit and tell us about yourself before we get into the questions?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm the Chief Product Officer at NeuroFlow, as you mentioned. And that means that I call us the dream catchers, that we're the ones that get to catch all the dreams that float around from our customers, from our clinical experts on our teams, from the industry, sort of keeping an eye on all the trends. And we get to catch all those dreams, turn them into roadmaps and then designs. And then we get to work with engineering to make sure that they actually come to life. We're a relatively small team. I think we're about 10 people in product and design, and a smaller company overall. But I was employee number 10, and it's been a really fun journey to grow with this organization. I like to say it's like a video game where the levels get harder as you unlock them. And so this is a really fun level. It's sort of Series C-ish, and towards the middle levels of our journey. And so, happy to talk about the path along the way.
Yeah, well, amazing. Could you share a bit about how you got started in project management and what inspired you to pursue this career?
Absolutely. So I've always been interested in making an impact. My background was in economics, political science, and Spanish in college. And I thought I wanted to do microfinance. So I worked at a couple of different jobs along the way in nonprofit project management and in government, trying to get into microfinance. I finally got that gig working with Kiva.org, which is a website that facilitates crowdsourced microfinance. And what I learned through that experience while I was working in Mexico as sort of account manager to microfinance institutions in Mexico, and I realized that the microfinance stuff was not my passion, but the tech stuff really was. I really enjoyed helping these small organizations figure out how to get their content on a website and fight with the accounting system and sort of help people think about how to use technology. And then I would irritate the Kiva folks by sending them lots of ideas of how to improve the system. And I realized that a lot of the cool stuff was happening in tech. So I went to Harvard Business School thinking that I wanted to be a tech entrepreneur. And I got a little distracted. It was sort of the moment of Warby Parker, and a lot of folks at Harvard Business School were starting things like Gilt Group and Rent the Runway, Birchbox. And so I got a little distracted, and I started a fashion brand called Eva and Paul Denim. Through that journey, I learned that fashion was not the thing. So same as microfinance was not the thing. But again, my favorite part was the tech side, working with the e-commerce site and thinking about how to craft the technology piece to tell the story of the brand. And so that's basically when the company was at its end, I pivoted and I got my first job in product management, and I've basically been doing that ever since.
Oh, that's amazing. So you're pulling lots of different bits from different industries that you can kind of incorporate with your jobs going forward then.
That's right. And I didn't really know about product management. I like to say that no one has a degree in product management, or it's very rare these days. So everyone finds their way to product management a different way. And for me, it was really in business school. They took us on a trip to San Francisco, sort of Silicon Valley tour. And I started to meet product managers for the first time. They were talking about their role and sort of the way that they sit between engineering and design and the business. And a lot of them had business backgrounds. And I thought, oh, wow, that does sound like me. Sort of sounds as close to an entrepreneur as you can get working within an organization. So when I decided I wasn't going to continue being an entrepreneur, it made sense to jump into product management.
Oh, that's amazing. When you were starting to get into product, was there a lot of women there that you had as role models, or were you kind of one of the first trailblazers in your particular niche in product?
I was really lucky that my first role in product management, there was a woman who had also been an entrepreneur and then switched into product management. And she looked at my resume, which didn't have any product management in it yet, and sort of saw the skill set and the opportunities. And she helped teach me a lot of the core fundamentals of product management, and she helped me grow in my journey. So I'm lucky that she was there with me in that first role. I've always found that there's a few more women in product, but that we sit at the table without a lot of other women around. So at that organization, which was a digital media startup, was a good example where all of engineering was male, all of the leadership of the company was male. These are very heavily male. All the editorial staff, a lot of the editorial staff was male, and that the product ladies, were just a few in that corner. And it's really dependent on the organization how many women are in product and how much of the leadership is in product. But I found that mentorship and sponsorship early on was very helpful.
That's amazing. Did you find that women bring a unique perspective to product that the males may not, or does it just round it out? Or how do you think women encourage innovation that we might not have seen before?
So thinking about the work that I've done, there's been times where the subject matter it's been really helpful to be female. As an example, we're releasing, I think at this point it's our second version of our maternity modules, our maternity content. So building experiences within our mobile app and our web platform for a woman who's pregnant. And being a woman and being a mom, having gone through that journey has been very helpful for me as I work with my design team and my product managers to craft that experience and to communicate with other female leaders in healthcare who are also moms and know a lot about pregnancy and maternity. So I think that there are opportunities, especially in things like women's health, where it really matters to be female. I think in general in product management, on average, I don't think this is always true, but on average, women tend to be a little bit more social. I saw this when I worked with kids in high schools, when I was working in charter schools, that the girls are more likely to hang out in circles with other girls and sort of build those social skills, maybe on average be a little bit more extroverted. And so I do think that those are skills that help us in product management, because so much of product management, you're in meetings, you're talking to other people, you're building relationships. And so I leverage those skills every day as I think about my role in product management. So I don't think you have to be female to have those skills. And I certainly don't think every woman has those skills, but I think there's a little bit of a correlation there.
So we've talked about the skills that women might bring, but what are the challenges that women might face when they're entering product?
Yeah, as I said, it's very common in tech in general, or in the technical part of an organization, to be one of the few women, especially one of the few women in leadership. One of my mentors, Camille Fournier, who was the CTO of Rent the Runway, and has been working in finance technology for quite a while since then, which is a very double male dominated industry of finance and technology. Her quote was, "You have to have sharp elbows. You have to find your place. You have to make the space for yourself." And so I'm often the only female leader in a room, or the only woman in a room, whether that's a digital or a real room full of engineers, or full of finance and commercial and salespeople. So a lot of those top roles are still male dominated. And so as a woman leader in general, but especially as a product person who's all about building bridges across the organization, you need to make that space for yourself, and you need to find ways to connect with the other executives or leadership team that look the way that you need them to look.
Mm-hmm. Are there any particular projects that you've worked on that you're really proud of, or initiatives that you've taken that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I'm very proud of the journey at Neuroflow, as I mentioned, our video game of levels. So I'm really proud that we've been able to take what was sort of a nugget of technology when I joined the company 6 years ago and rebuild it multiple times as needed. There's a product theory where a customer asks for a sports car, and after some discovery, you realize actually we can deliver them roller skates or a skateboard or a bicycle. We don't need to build the whole sports car right away. But I think that theory is really important, that you are always looking for that minimum viable product that you can deliver to your customer. But the thing that we always forget in that journey is that you can't bring the wheels from the bicycle when you build the sports car later. You have to actually throw the whole bicycle away and build something new. And that's a really uncomfortable process of that sort of creative destruction, where there's actually large chunks of code or chunks of functionality that need to get discarded along the way, either because you've pivoted away from them or because you're building something, the new version of them. So I'm really proud of the big creative destruction processes that we've gone through. In the early days, Neuroflow had a set of wearable integrations where you could put a headband on, a Muse headband, and it would measure your brain waves and try to predict your mental health. And this was really cool. It had a lot of really interesting value. But the challenge selling it into healthcare is it was very expensive to sell all these headbands. And it was a complicated and not necessarily intuitive way to think about measuring mental health. And so over time, our customers gave us the feedback to pivot away from that functionality. And it took us a while to actually turn it off and finally sunset all that code. And it's a hard and painful process. It's hard for the founders. It's hard for the business because there's still a couple customers using it. It's hard for engineering to find the time to invest in turning things off or cleaning up their code. But it's been extremely valuable to us, one, from a brand perspective, to not have a confusing product story, from a user experience perspective, that there isn't extra features cluttering things up, and then from a technical perspective, being able to have a cleaner code base with a lot less QA effort. So it's saved us as an organization a lot of money and created a lot of value. So that's the kind of project I'm really proud of.
Yeah, and there's so much you can learn from projects that might not necessarily work out in the end. So there's still value to them, even if you do have to put them to rest, your product baby.
That's right. And I think that's exactly it, where minimum viable products or other types of products can be an experiment. We talk about them as an industry as, oh, we're going to run an experiment, especially in the early days as an entrepreneur. And that's exactly the stuff that you should be doing. You should be testing lots of different things. But then you got to clean it up. You got to sunset all the experiments that failed. You've got to agree which ones failed or which ones aren't as valuable, and you got to clean up your mess. And that can be a really challenging thing for founders to do or for companies to do. But that's what creates world-class products and world-class engineering teams over time.
Well, that's amazing. What is the main advice that you would offer to women who are just entering the field? Like, not senior, just people or women who don't quite know what to expect. How would you guide them into it?
The tricky thing about product management, as I mentioned, is that there's no degree in product management. So you need to pick up all of the product management skills along the way. Unfortunately, that's a wide range of skills. You need to have technical skills where you can work with engineers and understand, what's an API and what's an SFTP file transfer and how do you think about a good database. Then you have to be able to work with data. So you have to do data analysis on your own, maybe looking at acquisition funnels and front-end analytic traffic data, but also like looking at database data, working with data scientists, working with AI models, which I think is going to only become more common. You've got to work with designers. So you've got to understand what an elegant user experience looks like and know how to help with user research and customer discovery, and be able to build complex user flows to inform what the design team is up to. And then you need a whole set of business skills: finance, negotiation, understanding marketing, understanding sales. That's a lot to understand. That's the whole business, right? And so you're not going to have that as a woman starting in product management. You probably come from one of those places. Maybe you come from a design background. Maybe you come from a QA background, which is kind of like design. Maybe you come from engineering or data, or maybe you've been customer facing, so you're more like on that business side. Account management's a common place to start in product. So you need to know what your core skills are and what you've learned so far. Then I think it's helpful to look for product opportunities that match. So if you have a background that's customer facing, maybe working with a B2B SaaS technology, you shouldn't try to jump to a technical product manager role. Or it's going to be a little harder to jump to a consumer product role, which is all about design and working with designers. So I think it's about, thinking about yourself and your skill set and trying to find the product role that matches, or branding yourself that way to start, almost a little bit of a specialist. And then as you grow your career, you can grow more general skills and find bigger opportunities. By the time someone's a senior PM on our team, they're a little bit more of a generalist, where they've got a broader set of skills, unless they've decided to go deep in one of those specialties. So I think those are sort of the core two pathways through product, is that you can go from specialist to more generalist over time, or you can go deep in one of those specialties, like being we have a director who's a technical product lead, and that you can go real deep into technical product management if you want to. So there's a couple of different paths through, but as you're getting started, being really clear on what your skill set is and looking for that PM role that matches is the most important thing.
What would you say is your favorite part of product management? Like, which niche do you really lean into?
I like to say that it sounds like I'm a business person, because I went to Harvard Business School and I was an entrepreneur. But my first love was data. I had an economics background. So I love data analytics and playing with the data. And that's always been a really important part of product management for me. And I actually interviewed along the way with agencies as a product manager. And that was the reason I could never work at an agency, is that they don't get to play with the data. They get to do all the design and all of the business analysis. They work with the engineers, and then they hand it off. So I think my true love is still that data analysis. And that's because, one, it allows you to really make the product better, right? You get to see the data over time and reinvest in it. But two is that you actually get to see that it's working. Mm-hmm. At an agency, you sort of hand it off, and if you don't check, the traffic, you don't track the acquisition, you'll never know if what you did worked. And I really love the satisfaction of seeing that it worked, that someone likes it, that it's working well. That's my favorite part of product management, is delivering a product into users' hands and then have them actually use it.
Fantastic. So with your product team, how do you make a conscious effort to include diverse voices and women? What's your philosophy?
First of all, I think it's hard. I wouldn't pretend to sit and say that I have figured out diversity in tech. I think it's a really hard and entrenched problem that starts earlier than at the hiring process. So there's only so much we can do as hiring managers, because there's lots of bias and bottlenecks around diversity before they get to us. But the things that I believe in, my philosophy, to answer your question, is meritocracy by design. The most important thing to me is that I get the right people in the right seats, that they like to work at startups, they like to work at mission-driven organizations, they have whichever of those product skills are most important. And it shouldn't matter, what some of those other factors like gender or race or things like that, as long as we're being really focused on the meritocracy piece, and people are rewarded for the work that they do. Other things that have helped with diversity is broader searches. Like, the more narrow the search we've done, the less diversity we've gotten, which makes sense. So like network searches tend to be less diverse than like a broader open search. And then in order to, so number one is meritocracy and getting the right people, but also in order to build a health application that is for a wide and broad population, it's helpful for us to have a wide range of perspectives. So we think a lot about mental health diversity, physical health diversity, age diversity, like all those things matter when you're thinking about our populations and the populations that are working with us. We work really closely with Medicaid and Medicare organizations. So those are very diverse populations across race, gender, socioeconomic level. And obviously for Medicare, age is a very important component when thinking about technical design. So we could definitely do more. I always wish that we could, but we think about that a lot as we go through our hiring processes.
Yeah, I think we're at a time where people are really trying new things, and that's exciting to see how we can incorporate different voices. And speaking of strategies, is there anything that you've found, any ways where you've been able to balance your career growth and product management with other aspects of your life, such as family and personal pursuits?
Yes, I think about this a lot. As I mentioned, I'm a mom, so I took a couple of months of maternity leave when the company was still in a relatively early stage of growth. I was actually the first woman at the company to take maternity leave, and I helped to craft that current maternity policy as I went. And so I think a lot about working closely with our HR teams around what are the policies and procedures in place at the organization that help to foster work-life balance. We think about it a lot as a mental health organization, that we have some extra elements in place like mental wellness benefits outside of just gym benefits. So you can use your money for massages as well as just going to the gym. It's sort of up to you, anything that's known to promote mental health. But even so, it's challenging. Coming back from maternity leave was very challenging. And I'm pregnant again. So I have to think about it again as sort of how do I make sure that my team and I are set up for success now, that I'm able to continue to perform at my executive level as I prepare for leave, and then have an out of office plan and a ramp back up plan so that everyone is successful, me, my family, my mental health, but also the goals of the organization, the business, and that my team is set up for success. So, in terms of the strategies, a lot of it's about mindfulness. So thinking about what all those different stakeholders need to be successful and how to help find that balance. And then what I tell women who are going on maternity leave is one of the most important things is not to let the guilt drive the decision making. It's very easy to either feel like you're not delivering enough to the business or you're not delivering enough to the family. And balance, one of the strategies is to not let that guilt affect that decision making, because the guilt will push you and you won't find the right balance if you let that drive it. You have to think holistically about what success looks like.
Well, congratulations on the pregnancy. It's very exciting. What are some trends or developments you see in the future when it comes to product management concerning women?
I think in general, we all have to think about AI. So, AI and chatbots, whether it's part of our workflow. So whether it's that, as you are brainstorming an idea, you brainstorm with the chatbot and the AI, or it's a feature that we have to build into our technology because it's an expected part of the user interface. And I think women are really positioned well to manage that transition, because hopefully we have some of the communication skills that you need to communicate with someone, and communicating with a chatbot is not that different. Again, trends, not all women are the same, but I believe that we'll have some of the skill set required to think about how to make the chatbots the most human that they can be. And as the technology underneath evolves, a lot of the work is going to be about defining the user interface, defining how it fits into our experiences. And I'm really excited personally to work on those projects.
I know AI is I think people are really divided on it, but I think you can't really deny the impact it's going to have, and that I think we'll all eventually have to work with it. So I'm excited to see where it goes as well.
Yeah.
Now, how do you approach your decision-making and problem solving within your role? And how do you think gender and diversity can influence those processes in your experience?
So you asked what my favorite part of product management was, and I said data. And that I've always been a data-driven, data decision-making type person. I'm not sure if that's gendered or not. When I was taking economics, it wasn't a very heavily female career path either. But I like to think that although I have this deep focus on data and data decision-making, I also have always been a very empathetic person, a sort of human psychology centered person, thinking about how things impact other people. And a lot of the work that I do in product management is balancing those two things. We have sort of the left brain, logical, what is a business strategy, finances, what the data tells us. But then a lot of product management is art, where you just have to have a feeling around what the user's going to like or not like. You have to have that empathy with them of like, oh, they're going to freak out when they see this, and here's why. And that might be about messaging or design, but also have an empathy for which features are going to be most important. So that's what I love best about product management, is being able to balance that left and right brain. And I do think that being a woman has helped me develop that balance.
Do you find AI does a good job of processing data as well, or do you think it needs that human touch?
I think when it comes to processing data, it's a set of steps. There's a lot of really simple and annoying steps in the early part of data processing. So you have to collect the data, which that, depending on where the data is coming from, can be really challenging. But let's imagine a world where we have the data. The next set of steps are all about cleaning it and structuring it and looking for trends in it. And that stuff, I think we're finding the technology is learning how to do. And we've been seeing this for a while, or that piece of taking data and turning it into structure and order, and maybe even finding some trends and insights. That's something that machines can really help us with. And that humans don't really like to do that either, right? I mean, there's some humans that do, but most of the data scientists that I've worked with think cleaning the data is the least fun part, which makes sense. But when we then think about, okay, cool, we have insights. Which insight's most important? Which insight's most actionable? Which insight's most intuitive? I think that's where humans and product managers, data scientists get to collaborate and think about how we take all of that and make it useful to humans. And that's where I think the human makes the most difference. For our technology, we have a natural language processing algorithm that reads journals in our platform and looks for thoughts of suicide. And then it surfaces those insights to clinicians. So it's doing exactly what I said. It goes through the data, it cleans it, it looks for the relevant pieces, it finds patterns, it finds trends, and it surfaces insights. And then everything else is a human. So we expect one of our clinicians or one of our customers' clinicians to see that alert, call a patient, check in on them, see if they're really in trouble or not. And they can actually refine the algorithm by toggling whether it was real or not. And then they can take that insight and sort of pass it along to the rest of their organization, either for reporting or for next steps. They can help refer the person to better levels of care. And so I think that's a really good example of using the technology to do the things tech is best at, which is going through large volumes of data, and then leaving the human to do the part that's more sensitive around finding the absolute truth, the human truth, and putting it into action.
Oh, I wish more people got to see this side of AI and how it can have such a positive impact on people. Because I think a lot of people just get so hung up, oh, AI is replacing jobs, but this could save someone's life. So I think more people need to hear about that. And it's fantastic that this technology is available. Could you share any memorable success stories or moments from your career that really highlights the impact of women's leadership?
I thought I had thoughts. Hold on a second. Oh, yeah. So I think some of the most challenging moments of management in general, people management, is when you have to evaluate the performance of your team. It's some of the hardest things that I've had to do, and some of the most memorable because they've been the hardest things. It's really challenging when you have someone they're performing or they're meeting some of their expectations, and then at some point you realize that they're not on the trajectory that you need them to be. I think handling those situations is really challenging for me and for anyone else on my team that's part of that process. And so I think I hope that as a mom and as a woman, I'm able to treat those situations with a gentleness and an empathy to handle them as humanely as possible, because sometimes things need to get done from a business perspective, but there are humans involved as well. And so making sure that I'm able as an executive and as a leader to make those hard choices that's best for the team or best for the organization, but then build solid human relationships into the future and handle things in a way that leaves people feeling good about their experience with me or their experience with my organization. So those are some of the most memorable experiences that I've had.
Well, it's very insightful to realize that these are people's lives we're dealing with. It's that merging of the career and the corporate life to remembering that everyone is human.
Mm-hmm.
What are some initiatives that you're involved with aimed to support other women in project management and product management?
I really enjoyed my experiences working with the Product-Led Alliance. I've enjoyed the events that you guys have had. I really appreciate this conversation. I'm also on the advisory council for the Executive Edge program with Women in Product, which is a training program for women who are on the cusp of chief product officer. They're at the senior and executive level, and giving them a whole bunch of skills, mostly, honestly, soft skills that help them transition from a leader to an executive. And that's been a really rewarding group to be part of, partly because I get to be on this advisory council with other extraordinary executive product leaders, female product leaders, but also it's really rewarding to be able to help other women at that level make that really tough transition to executive. There still are a lot of hurdles for women, as I said, mostly soft skill related hurdles. There's a lot of books that I recommend for women who are thinking about that journey. Things like How Women Rise is a really great book. Machiavelli for Women is a really great book. So there's a lot of articles and publications and books that help with that transition. But being in a cohort of women that can work together and talk about their challenges can be really meaningful as well.
Well, I'm going to have to get that list from you. Now, our last question is, how do you see the role of women evolving in the product management field? And what steps do you think individuals or organizations could take to foster greater gender equality?
I hope that we just continue to succeed when we're succeeding and to take on more and more of these opportunities. There are a lot of really powerful and senior female product women. And as there are more of us, hopefully it gets easier for everybody else. So I'm excited to see that continued growth. And as I mentioned with gender equity, I think the most important thing is keeping an eye on meritocracy over bias. It's very easy to write biased performance reviews or to hold women to different standards. I think those are the things that, the soft things that hold women back. So I'm hopeful that we get to a point where either there's more understanding of the different types of soft skills that women and men bring to the office, and that not every executive needs to look the same. But I also hope that there continue to be these programs that help women to adapt their styles if needed to the corporate environment.
Oh, well, fantastic. Thank you, Julia, for being a part of this conversation. It was an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Do you have any other parting thoughts or anything you'd like to share with our audience before we go?
No, but thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of InnovateHER, and we will see you on the next episode.